We're coming to you from the Detroit Auto Show floor next on Talking Cars. Hi everybody, and welcome to Talking Cars with Consumer Reports. I'm Tom Mutchler.
I'm Gabe Schenhauer.
And I'm Jake Fisher.
This is one of my favorite episodes of the podcast each year. We're filming this live from the Detroit Auto Show floor. It's been sort of an interesting show, kind of a slow burn rather than any really big news. But Gabe, in your mind, most important car of the show?
Okay, yeah, so the show is really upbeat, got a lot of things, but pretty short on meat and potatoes. So I think the most important car here, and you have to qualify it, most important for whom? So for real consumers, it's definitely the Chrysler minivan, the Chrysler Pacifica.
Oh, I'm willing to argue this.
That's okay. And the other most important car in terms of world volume is the Mercedes EClass.
Well, let's talk about the Chrysler minivan, the Pacifica. First of all, it drives me nuts that they renamed it Pacifica. What was wrong with Town and Country?
So I'm going to skip to the chase here because you're going to ask me the same question, the most important car, and you know what?
What?
My answer is Pacifica. And I'll tell you why. It's because the name. It was so important to change the name. No, it had nothing to do with the name. I don't care what they call it. They could call it Super Caravan.
Why is it that important? Why is a new entry in a dying segment
The reason
important?
it is important is because this is a very practical vehicle, right? And you're right, it is a tough segment because a lot of people don't like the practical cars. The minivans, we all know, they're really practical.
Right.
But it's something that people have been asking for a long time, which is a hybrid minivan. It's a minivan that gets good fuel economy, and not just that, it's a plug-in hybrid, and they're talking about 30 miles of range. I mean, plug-in hybrids, they've been kind of, hit or miss. Not a lot of people are interested in them, but 30 miles of range in a vehicle that big is actually pretty impressive. I mean, plug-in hybrids are kind of like the gateway drug to electrification, right? You don't have the compromises of that long recharge all the time, but you get to kind of play with that whole idea of electric range.
But here's the thing. I mean, okay, plug-in hybrid means this is going to be expensive. It is a minivan market, which means it's very practical and often cost-conscious. The other problem I really have with this car is the whole conceit of going in and we're going to revitalize the minivan market by making something that's more fashionable and more cool, and it's like
it's not.
It's not that awesome. I'm sorry.
But still, it plays in a big segment. Okay, the segment shrank from 1 million units a year to 500,000 units a year. Still, big segment. It's a pretty popular car, also popular among our readers. Out of everything else in the show, so it's got to be.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love minivans. I've owned 2 Honda Odysseys. I grew up in a Chrysler minivan family before my parents defected to an Odyssey. Still, I don't see this van really changing,
and I'm
resetting the needle.
I'm going to give you another reason why this is an important vehicle. It's an extremely important vehicle for Fiat Chrysler. This is the first vehicle that they're actually built themselves. I mean, let's think about Fiat Chrysler.
It's not. We're not taking some old Fiat platform.
But think about that in terms of Chrysler. How long has it been? I mean, it's been rehashed Fiat platforms. Before that, it was a rehashed Mercedes-Benz platform. Before that, it was like Mitsubishi platforms. I mean, this is the first time they're actually okay. Let's go see what we can accomplish. Obviously, we haven't driven the thing before. Let's go find out, can this thing drive nice? Do they know how to make a car that drives well and is competitive? It's going to be very, very interesting for that company as a whole.
Okay, it's a little surprising that there's no regular hybrid, that you jump from a regular conventional powertrain to a plug-in hybrid. And sales-wise, almost every car that we've seen that has a hybrid and a plug-in hybrid, sales-wise, the regular hybrid does the plug-in hybrid by a lot.
The other thing I do not get is you clean sheet a minivan and you're worried about SUV sales and you don't figure out all-wheel drive. I mean, really? Which you could have done with, they could have done with the plug-in hybrid. You could have had 2 electric motors at the back and it would have, I find that a bit disappointing.
Yeah, well, it has to do with the well, but
the
Toyota
well
Sienna does it.
They do it, but they don't sell a whole lot of them, quite honestly.
Sure. Okay, I mean, one of the vehicles that has eaten into the market of the Chrysler minivans has been the GMC Acadia. The first generation Acadia was basically a minivan on stilts. They really changed up the formula this time around, though.
Yeah, smaller engines, reduced weight by 700 pounds.
Yeah,
which is incredible.
Significant.
But the way they got out the 700 pounds is the thing is 7 inches shorter and it's 3 inches narrower. And you sit in it and you feel it. It's like,
Well,
This
because of
is
where
not-
you sit.
this
I
isn't
mean,
a minivan
the second row is actually pretty comfortable.
It is.
The seats are up high. You got great visibility out. I mean, the problem that I think GM has had is they haven't quite figured out the formula. I mean, let's think of this through. I mean,
There used to be tweeners and everything.
Right,
Now
tweeners
they
and
lined up
They
their
could never
size.
line everything anything
but think
up.
about this. I mean, like CR-V RAV4. What has it been, like 20 years now? And they still haven't figured out how to have like
The
an
Equinox
actual...
has always been bigger.
It's always been bigger. I mean, they had the Saturn Vue for a couple of years, but I mean, it's like they have not had a small SUV in the heart of the most popular growing market. They have not had a vehicle that's the right size.
And they
now
haven't had a
they're-
true midsize.
They haven't. So finally, to get the right size vehicle, hopefully next Equinox, and that'll bring down and be the size of the the Buick Envision that we saw. The right size vehicle that could make a huge difference for them.
Yeah, the Traverse, Acadia, Enclave, they've always been like half a size larger than their competitors in terms of
And I think
Highlander
most consumers
and-
are actually fine with that size, because the point is that you're not in the third row seat that much. When there is someone in the third row seat, it's probably some kids who, they don't have to be that comfortable
I
anyway.
do think, though, I mean, they announced the last year of Acadia sales, I believe, has been the best-selling year with nearly 100,000 of these things. I do think, though, if you have one of these older Lambda GM SUVs, if you have good grief, if you have the Saturn Outlook, you have the Traverse, you have the Enclave, you have the Acadia. I mean, we're renting an Acadia as sort of the company rental car while we're here at Detroit, because we can fit grown-ups in all three rows and a little bit of luggage. You can't do that in the new one.
That's
they
probably
shrunk
not
it.
designed for company rentals,
They
or family use.
They have a Suburban. They have a
Well, I
Yukon
mean,
XL.
we also don't know what they're doing with Traverse. That who knows, that could stay larger.
Right, but I mean, they have other entries that can fit everything, so they don't need to double up on that.
Right. You mentioned the Buick Envision. I find that a rather interesting car because it comes from China.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing. It's like, just because it comes from China does not mean it was designed in China.
No, right.
I mean, the car was designed just like every other General Motors vehicle. And you know what? There are domestic branded vehicles that we've been buying for a very long time that do not come from the United States.
Well, actually, more to the
I
point.
bet you that for some customer it's going to matter, because from a customer perspective, there are going to be people that I want to buy American, I want to buy Buick, I have a soft spot for Buick, whatever, but you know what, you're bringing it from China, that doesn't really sit well
I don't
with
know.
me.
I think, though, if it's a good car, and that will cover up a lot of, and not even
Even
that,
if it's a
it will
good
cover
car.
up a lot of things.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, is that GM's made mistakes in the past with bringing in vehicles that have been designed for other markets that never quite worked well here.
The Encore, the Trax.
The Buick Encore, which is very popular, has a bunch of inherent disadvantages because it was designed primarily for an overseas market. Chevy Trax, same thing. This time, though, they learned from that mistake. Like you said,
Sure.
Envision was developed in North America, was intended to be sold in North America. I mean, ironically, North America is an incremental market for that car. It's going to sell far more in China.
Oh yeah,
But I
China
think your
is-
point is, the point is really important. It's like the design is what matters. If it was designed for a Chinese market, it was designed for, I mean, how many people know that the Trax is built in South Korea, or their Italian Fiat is made in Serbia? I mean, people are kind of moved past that. Everyone's, I don't want an iPhone because that's made in China. No, we're kind of past that. Certainly there are some people who want to buy American cars, and maybe they're buying a Toyota that's built in Kentucky. I don't know. But I think for most people, we're at a new area.
But you say that it's the design that counts, and the Envision does look to be a very promising
It
design.
looks right, it looks competitive.
It's the right size. It has a lot of standard equipment, including forward collision warning. The 2-liter turbo is competitive. It's a shame you actually notice that it's a slightly older design because it's got a 6-speed automatic instead of the 8-speed that we've seen in the Malibu. But the design looks like it's going to.
It's the right size.
It's the right size. Another vehicle where design matters, and it probably matters a lot more the second time around, is the Honda Ridgeline.
Yeah, the Honda Ridgeline, I mean, I was actually a fan of it back in 2005 when it first came out with all the innovations. But now it looks like a conventional truck. I mean,
It looks like a Pilot that they cut the back off and put a bed on.
They even added a seam line between the bed
Yeah,
and the
I saw
cab,
that.
which doesn't even need to be there. Just
Yeah.
to kind of like give you the perception it's a real truck.
They're not fooling anybody. Come on. I mean,
What do you mean they're not fooling? They're not fooling anyone with what? With it being a
it's
real
not
truck?
It's not a truck. I mean, look. I mean, they tried it before, right? They came. I mean, we tested it. It drives really nice. It drives like a car, but it's like the sales were just kind of pathetic.
Yeah, it was a total flop
And to go
sales-wise.
come out with it again, I just don't get it. If you are Honda and you're like, hey, I'm going to come out with a vehicle because I want to do it, and I don't really care if it's going to sell very well. Come up with something fun and sporty. Kind of like give you a Halo
I'll
vehicle
argue
or
the
something
opposite
like
side
that.
of
Give
this
me a
all
Type
day.
R or something or rather. But it's like, I don't think this is going to really make a difference in terms of volumes for them. I think people are looking for trucks. They're going to get a real truck.
I actually think this can do incredibly well. Because look, I mean, okay, first of all, it looks conventional. The original Ridgeline looked like a GoBot. It was weird. It had these funny flying buttresses in the back. Second, they've addressed some of the major capacity problems that the old truck had. The old truck's bed was ridiculously small. So now it's got, it's a crucial half foot longer. It's quite a bit wider. Their, payload, which actually was competitive before, 1,600 pounds. It's a lot nicer than a Tacoma inside. It's a lot nicer than a Colorado inside.
It's the minivan
and it's probably going to drive better.
It's the Mazda 5 argument. It's these things. Yes, you were looking at this. We're a bunch of engineers here. We're looking at this logically.
No, but I'm a guy who likes driving cars, and it drives better than a Tacoma.
It does,
well,
and the old one did too.
To us,
and no one bought
I
it.
mean, there are people who actually are drawn to that kind of truck feel that you get in a Tacoma. I mean, I can't explain it, but it's the reality.
I can't explain it either. Changing topics completely. We've seen 3 new flagships from luxury manufacturers. 2 of them with the number 90 in them. One of them is the Genesis G90.
Oh, that's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
So the G90 is the successor of the EClass, and now under the auspices of a new brand, Genesis.
You want to talk about cars that did not sell well. The Ridgeline was a raging sales success compared to the Hyundai Equus.
Right. But these guys are pretty ambitious. I mean, they have a long-term vision. They are not deterred by lack of sales success with their first generation. They come up with
that car was an old,
second
again,
generation.
going back to cars that were made for markets and then sold in other places. The old Equus was
But it's not about the G90. This is the thing. What it's about is Genesis and what that is. And 5 years from now, we might have a 3 Series competitor and a 5 Series competitor.
Luxury SUV. I mean, there's a whole big plan there.
And is there a spot for another luxury brand that maybe gives you more value? Hyundai overtones. Yeah, I think there might be a spot for that.
Yeah, because the G90 does give you a lot of value. It has all the active safety features that are
sure.
Our BMW 7 Series has almost $20,000 worth of options, and a lot of that is the active safety stuff that's standard on this G90.
But take it away from the G90 for a second. Go back to that mid-size luxury car. Go about that compact sports sedan. We talk about it all the time. There are not a lot of great entries there. Something that's reliable, something has a feature, something that drives halfway decent. There is a spot. There's an opportunity for another auto.
I'd even be happy with a more sporting-oriented luxury SUV, a luxury crossover that was reliable. That I did not have to go to BMW. I did not have to go to Mercedes-Benz and pay $65,000 to get that.
You could make a really nice luxury SUV off of a Kia Sportage or something.
Or even the Genesis platform.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The next luxury flagship with 90 in it is the Volvo S90.
Right. So I mean, the car has a lot of presence. I mean, it's
gorgeous car.
It's large. I don't know about gorgeous because from the rear, it doesn't look gorgeous at all. Somehow the rear and the front just don't gel together, in my view. Anyway, it's basically the Volvo XC90, which is the new embodiment of Volvo, only with a different top hat. Shrunken with same infotainment system, similar interior. Lots of nice interior details there.
In other words, it's a rebodied XC90. The SUV version will probably sell tenfold what the sedan version sells.
Right. Volvo is poised very nicely right now, because right now, they are reinventing themselves. They still own the word safety, which is really important to people who are buying cars, and the details of that car. I was really drawn by the interior details. I mean, we could talk about, exterior lines. I don't really care. But I mean, there were so many nice details that you get in that car, and it's a nice place to be. And it's like, this, it's surprising delights. You're like, God, this is something substantial. That's really nice.
But you talk about surprising delights, and the car that surprised me with a lot of those neat little design features is the third flagship that was introduced, the Lincoln Continental.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the individual thigh support extenders. That's.
Is your rear asymmetric?
For Dave, it's all about thigh support. Yeah, exactly. That's a good
My
point.
left side is a little longer.
Yeah, you're on a long drive. You want to relieve some pressure here and there. So it's
on a larger scale. The car has quite a bit of presence in person. The door handles are really cool. They sort of just fit within the side trim.
Yeah.
It looks
Character line.
Yeah, I mean gives them a flagship that they haven't had.
They need it. They need it bad. It's an uphill battle for them, though. Come on. I mean, you look at Cadillac. I mean, Cadillac has been so ahead of them in terms of reinventing themselves and distancing themselves from their corporate cousins. They've got.
But do you see?
Tough.
Okay, do you
it's
look
going to be tough to be a true aspirational brand again.
But do you look at the Continental and see the Fusion platform that's based on? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying finally they've got something that distances themselves, but is it too late? Cadillac has distanced themselves for years. I mean, really, it's going back to the first CTS. And still, they're having such a problem actually putting out volumes.
Still an uphill battle.
Right. I mean,
they need to be there. It's just no choice for them.
I mean, I would be willing to bet that the Cadillac CT6 built on a rear drive platform that is super light, based on every other Cadillac of modern time that we've driven, I bet you that Cadillac will drive better, but it won't matter to anybody in that class. You just have this uphill battle. You just have these past assumptions.
I want a BMW because I want a BMW, or a Mercedes-Benz, or a Lexus, or whatever it is. You're drawn to the
brand cachet has a lot to do with it.
That's what they have to build. Now actually, Lincoln, to their credit, they're actually going after that, right? They're looking at. I mean, we've been in some. When we buy all the cars. I remember going to a Cadillac dealer with you, and we go in this place, and it's like, really? This is a Cadillac dealer? And like a paint's coming off the walls, and the guy's in the plaid suit.
I'd probably go and see, mid-century charm. This is lovely.
But it's like I think Lincoln has taken that to heart, and they're actually working really hard to get that dealership experience and all that stuff. And maybe that's something they could do to build up that brand cachet.
Right. Talking more about brand cachet and luxury cars. 2 bread and butter German luxury sedans got redesigned. First, the Mercedes-Benz E-Class.
Yeah, the E-Class. So now you look at the Mercedes E-Class, do a double take, you don't know if it's a C-Class or an S-Class because it kind of lines up with the rest of the styling theme. The interior is pretty gorgeous. I mean, the infotainment's going to be probably a little confusing at first. But
big
it's an important car, and first out of the blocks is a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, and I don't know if with the lack of a normally aspirated V6, I don't know how that's going to play with buyers.
I don't know though. I mean, we have a GLC 300 with the same engine, and it does pretty well.
Yeah, 9-speed transmission and the all-wheel drive. So yeah, it works well.
Yeah, I mean, something that's also interesting is that car has the first vehicle-to-vehicle communications capability, which is something that it's going to take forever for this to roll out, but it does have safety implications in the future.
Sure, I mean, it just sees around the corner for you. If there is somebody who's just about to run a red light and you know about it, it's a huge advantage.
Speaking of being able to see things, if you take a look at the new redesigned Audi A4, I think you're pretty much going to confuse it for the previous generation car.
Yeah, I mean, but that's almost true for any A4, A6 launch. There's a little bit of a continuity there. I mean, you can say the same thing about the Golf. It's brand new. It's something's different, but
they just tweak it a bit. Yeah. But I mean, the A4 does have, and look, it gets the current Audi technology suite, including
virtual cockpit,
reconfigurable
dash.
What I found also curious about that is them moving away, it sounds like, from the 8-speed automatic to a 7-speed dual clutch.
Well, not only that, also it's the end of the CVT for them, because as you remember, the CVT was the transmission for the front-wheel drive model, and the 8-speed automatic for the all-wheel drive, and now all of versions get the 7-speed automated manual dual clutch.
Well, I mean, as for the A4, I mean, we've been looking for a really good entry in that class for quite a while, and this has got a good chance because Audi's reliability, I mean, survey has been very, very good. So hopefully they'll keep that up, and Audis have been driving very nicely. And that was A4 was old and really kind of old vehicle, and it had issues even with crash.
Yeah,
tests.
offset crash was horrible.
Right. So I mean. So it's really good. I mean, what scares me a little bit, again, is all this new technology and the transmission. And those are two square in the face. Those are the problems we're seeing with cars these days. Right. Hopefully they could work that out and maintain the reliability.
That's absolutely right.
Speaking of transmissions, we're starting to see some 10-speed automatics, and one of them is in the Lexus LC.
Lexus LC, they went to a conventional automatic. They claim it shifts as quickly as a Porsche PDK, which is an automated manual, but they didn't want to go. I don't know, they went to Aisin, the supplier, and they worked it out. But, the car itself is, Lexus needed badly a halo car, like a $100,000 halo car.
The LS is a boring halo car.
Right, and I hope they learned their lesson their hard way from the SC430, which was kind of car that never knew what it wanted to be, a sports car, sports coupe.
They sort of had this supercar that
the LFA.
The
yeah.
LFA.
people kind of.
Yeah.
That's quite a halo right there. But I mean,
that's an asterisk.
right.
I mean, that's a
That's a barely existing.
that's like
car.
Acura. Oh, good grief, Acura. I mean, every time you turn around, Honda and Acura are like, hey, by the way, we have the NSX out. Yeah, everything else we sell is boring, but we have the NSX. But no, it looks like the Lexus LC escapes that. What I like about it is that, there's so many performance cars here with these, 3-liter twin turbo V6s. It's like Lexus is like, yeah, we got a 5-liter V8.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
well,
almost
that's
think
fine.
there's
We're
no
old
more
school.
normally aspirated
That's fine.
engines, and Lexus is still 5-liter V8. Yeah.
What's probably also going to be meaningful there is that car is the first use of the new rear drive platform for Lexus. Because I mean,
Right.
the GS is a decent car from Lexus. The IS, we're not too fond of. They need a good rear drive platform, and it looks like they've invested in something.
Right.
Something else with the 10-speed automatic is the new
The
Ford Raptor.
The Raptor, yeah.
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 Something like 500 pounds less because they went to
Aluminum,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a Baja race truck. I mean, but a lot of people just buy it because that's like the most
It
the
looks
meaner
cool. I mean,
looking
come on,
F-150,
it looks so
and that's just
my 7-year-old son, he thinks they're cool.
Well, if he has a lot of allowance, then he can get a Raptor. Perhaps the high performance variant of a car that personally I care about a little more is the BMW M2.
Yeah, so it's an incremental. I mean, the M235.
It's a gorgeous
just
car.
an
It's
awesome
like-
car. It's a spectacular driving car. So the M2 is just another notch,
It's
upping the ante.
The distilled, whatever was left of that BMW ultimate driving machine. I mean, that's in that. That's in that the 235, and I can imagine what the M2 is going to be like. Yeah.
Right. Talking about my favorite car of the show, though, that Buick Avista.
Oh, it's
is
gorgeous.
Stunning.
That is stunningly gorgeous.
I have such very practical Tom has a spot in his cold, cold heart for profligate luxury personal grand touring sports coupes, and that's one of them.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, you walk by that car, you think it's a Maserati or something, but of course, the luxury coupe is pretty much of a dead segment, and Buick
Except for
without China,
Lexus just coming out with one.
right? Yeah, Buick without China is don't go together. So you're going to have to maybe turn it into a sedan somehow.
So look, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this not the second year in a row where Buick stole the show with styling?
Yeah.
The Avenir
The
last
Avenir
year
was a gorgeous vehicle too. The problem with Buick is they need to produce some of these cars.
Well, you know what? Even though they brought it out at LA, I got to spend a lot of time. I did a video on the LaCrosse. LaCrosse is a really nice evolution of that car.
It's an evolution, but it's like you look at the Avenir, you look at the Avista. I mean, this is something. Wow.
That's a revolution.
That's a
You're
revolution, and I feel like Buick needs that because I mean, they're making reliable vehicles. They're making cars that drive really nice. Yeah, the styling is not something that you really want to be in.
Although they're turning mostly into, like most car companies, they're turning into an SUV company basically.
Sure.
That's where their volume is.
Right.
But I mean, it's still
But
good.
even if you're there, I mean, you could still instill that styling into it. I mean, you look at a BMW, X5 or something like that. That kind of looks
you're right.
something substantial and interesting.
Speaking of substantial and interesting looking SUVs, the Kia Telluride.
Oh, that's it's substantial indeed. I mean, it looks like a luxury SUV, and Kia wants to be. It's another example of trying to expand the brand. Just like Buick is trying to expand the brand upmarket. Kia wants to be wants a piece of the pie because you look at what sells in the $50,000-$60,000 price point. It's
SUVs.
luxury SUVs.
Yeah.
Infiniti plays there. The domestics play there. The Europeans, of course. So
When you
it's
look at
a
that
natural.
Kia, and from a lot of angles, it looks like an XC90.
Yeah, it does.
Especially from the front.
Proportion-wise, the proportions are quite similar.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything to avenge the Kia Borrego's 1-year lifespan.
You
That's
got
a-
big shoes to fill, right?
It does, it does,
They
absolutely.
sold dozens of those, I believe.
I think they sold a whole dozen.
I think they still have 2004
They're on
models on.
dealership slots.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to wrap it up for our coverage from the Detroit Auto Show. As always, we thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Talking Cars.